This is Decision 2015. You're watching Unrendered on IKTV. I'm Tony Regisford, and you can follow us on Twitter at iConcepts. My guest is Dr. the Honorable Linton Lewis. Dr. Lewis, yes, we were talking about the Petro-Carib Agreement, and you're saying that you believe, apart from this agreement, there is a bilateral agreement that exists between St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Venezuela.
There may well be, because as you notice, one of the provisions clearly recognize that there are some circumstances, economic and otherwise, that may be different in different countries that will require them to engage in bilateral discussions.
So you're saying all that's outlined here doesn't necessarily apply to St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
It may not apply.
It may not?
Yes. Because you see, what happens is that when you come to the House of Parliament, that is my problem with the Petro-Carib Agreement that you asked. Apart from not seeing the signed copy, apart from not having the copy that directly relates to the arrangement with St. Vincent and the Grenadines, there's also another problem. And that is, there is a loan element in the agreement. When government wants to raise finance by borrowing, they are required to come to the House of Parliament under the Finance Administration Act or under the Constitution to obtain Parliament's approval. And why does the government have to do that? Mainly because they're dealing with the people's money. So the people must have a say in how their money is spent. And they have that say through their elected parliamentary representatives. That is why. Now, this has that sort of effect of introducing a loan, a debt, which the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines at some point in time will be required to pay.
So what you were saying, and I listened to you, and I'm just trying to, because I don't want us to run out of time, what you were saying, that at one time you were saying by law it was required that this agreement came to the House of Parliament. And I think the Prime Minister was saying, no, it is not required by law.
I never said that. Never. The Prime Minister said by law. And I said to me that they can ratify, the executive can ratify the agreement, and I didn't have to bring it to Parliament. And I asked him to tell me which law in St. Vincent and the Grenadines permits that to happen. And he didn't answer the first time. The second time I asked him, he said he was advised, but he never indicated to me which law. Now, what normally happens? So whenever...
Are you saying that it is required by law or not required by law for this agreement to come?
The Prime Minister has been unable to indicate to me whether there was any provision either in our Constitution or ordinary laws that require only the signature of the executive for a treaty to be effective without that treaty having been brought to Parliament at all. I am saying to the Prime Minister that in countries where there's no law that indicates how a treaty should be incorporated into our legislation.
So you're saying even if it's not required by law, it is required in practice, basically.
Let me explain to you how it is done on the international law. What normally happens is that you have to give effect to a law that requires the government to be able to be paying the loan to Venezuela. So you have to bring that to Parliament. You should come to Parliament and lay it before Parliament. If you're making a ministerial statement, what should happen? That even after you have signed it, they bring it to Parliament in your ministerial statement about the Petro-Carib. And once you've done so, you're duty bound to lay that document on the parliamentary procedure in the House of Parliament so the members of Parliament can have the document. There's something in English called a Ponsonby rule where you can lay it before Parliament for 21 days. There's no precise rule that says you can do it in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But that should come to Parliament.
As a matter of duty or as a matter of law? This is I'm still trying to get
what,
that clear.
No, what happens?
I hear what you're saying, but I want to get it clear.
The practice
whether you're saying it is
as a matter of law, it has to come to Parliament.
As a matter of law,
it has to, because you cannot borrow. You have no authority.
So you're saying definitively that as a matter of law, this agreement had to come to
Parliament. Yes.
And the Prime Minister is refuting and says as a matter of law, it does not have to come to Parliament.
But okay.
I am not an expert on this.
Let's just look at it in its simplest form. In order to borrow money, the government has to come to Parliament and bring a bill to Parliament authorizing them, once it is passed in Parliament,
you're saying that
to borrow.
Yes.
This is a loan.
Right. So you're saying they've circumvented
there we
that.
Are. That's the point. That's clear.
That's the point you're making.
Yes,
in your mind, they have circumvented that.
Yes.
Right.
Because I'll tell you.
And you're saying it is illegal.
It's not properly done. Let me tell you why. In our Constitution, the Section 68, it clearly says that any revenues that are earned must pass to the consolidated fund. Any monies that are paid under Section 69 ought to pass to the consolidated fund unless there's a special act indicating otherwise. Now, what has happened here is that there is no act in St. Vincent and the Grenadines brought before Parliament that deals with this Petro-Carib agreement. But there is a loan. Right now, since 2005, 2006, we have been dealing with Petro-Carib, and the price of oil has been over $15 a barrel, over $40 a barrel, and at which there had been a 50% financing arrangement.
Well, there's a schedule, which we'll get into.
Schedule, yes. Now, so that is a loan to St. Vincent. But what has happened is this. The government has established private companies. Even if the government is a sole shareholder, the government, even if the Prime Minister and other persons may be shareholders, that is a private company that's doing the trading with Venezuela. But the arrangement with Venezuela, under Albert and so on, was that for state to be trading with state, St. Vincent to be trading with Venezuela. That was the arrangement. Now, the government ought to have come to the House of Parliament and establish a statutory corporation, which is a creature of statute, like the post office, like the offshore, like the tourism board, and so on. And that would have been, provisions would have been made inside there, in that act, for the type of arrangement that we see happening here now. But what the government did, it went and established private companies. Private companies that are separate and distinct from the operations of government. So this debt is not as yet in the government finances, not in the budget. How is the government going to bring that debt now into our national finances? They will have to do so by passing a law in the House of Parliament. But in the meantime, it is operating as a private entity, and that has never been the arrangement in the first place. That is not how it ought to have been done in the first place. And God wonders why it has been done that way. If you notice carefully, many of our treaties, for example, CARICOM, OECS, Caribbean Court of Justice, you name them, the protocol arrangements, they have been enacted into our law, so that they become part of our law.
Right.
The fleshing them out may also be brought in what you call another ordinary law in St. Vincent. But if the arrangements are so properly and effectively detailed in the treaty agreement, and that treaty agreement is incorporated into our law, or there's an act passed in Parliament to incorporate that treaty, then it becomes our law. And so we avoid them having to go and pass additional legislation. That was
okay. So I've heard your point, and I have to tell you that you've given me reason to go and get this whole issue clarified, because I am not an expert. I'm not going to venture there. I am going to get the other side, the other explanation. You've given one, you've given your side. I will go for the purpose of clarity and get the other side.
Don't you think it's rather interesting that even though I said it in the House of Parliament, and sought clarification of what I'm saying. If I'm wrong, let me know I'm wrong. And nobody's bothered. respond to
I
it?
listened to a bit of it, and I thought the Prime Minister was offering in his wrap-up, he was offering the question of whether it had to come there as a matter of law or as a matter of, as you were suggesting.
I didn't hear him because they made sure I was out of the house.
Oh, so you were not there?
They made sure I was out of the house. The
No, no, no,
speaker.
no, 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 no. This is before you were. This is before, I think.
Well, no, when he was mentioning
Yes.
about the ratification of the agreement, when I raised with him, he said, Cabinet can ratify this agreement and it doesn't have to come to Parliament. I was rather surprised. That's why I asked him, tell me the law in St. Vincent that says that.
So you're saying that he's incorrect? There's no, by law he has to bring it. The Cabinet cannot ratify it.
No, what I'm saying to
Yes.
you, something that actually requires the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to make payments through the taxes that they paid for a loan by the government must come before the House of Parliament. That's the law.
The schedule here, and I just want to spend one last 2 minutes on this. The
Yeah.
schedule here, because this was an issue as well. It was the leader of the opposition said, I think that if the price drops below $50 a barrel, and that's 50 US dollars, then there's no loan component, and that was refuted.
Yes.
Has that been cleared up now? Or are you still of the opinion that if the price drops below $50 a barrel, there's no loan?
The issue is this. As I said, provision paragraph 9 in the agreement clearly indicates that as a result of countries having different circumstances,
Right.
there may be bilateral discussions. So one wants to know
Yes.
whether in those bilateral discussions, whether in the agreement that you may have finally signed, if there were any agreement, whether or not it has the same financial arrangement.
So, in other words, this schedule here, which says if the price is $100 per barrel, 50% is a loan component. If it's $50 a barrel, you know, between 50 and 100, there's a 50% loan component. That's how I'm reading it. Below 50, or when it hits 50, it's a 40% component. $40, 30% loan component. Right down to $15 a barrel. There's still, even at a low price at $15 per barrel, a 5% loan component. And that's stated in this schedule, which is the agreement that was signed on to.
By all the countries.
Yeah, including St. Vincent.
All the countries.
Yeah,
of Portugal.
including St.
Yes,
Vincent.
I know.
So you're saying over and beyond this, there might be, this may not be strictly speaking correct, there might be another agreement
By virtue of paragraph 9.
that says, for the specific case of St. Vincent,
Yes.
I'm trying to read you right.
Yes,
The specific case of St. Vincent,
Yes.
if the price drops below $50 a barrel, there's no loan component. You're not sure of that?
No, I'm not sure of that. But the fact is that one needs to know the agreement on which the government of St. Vincent and Grenadines operates.
But what, okay, I understand what you're saying, but what I am trying to clear in my mind, right, that the opposition leader, your opposition leader, said quite emphatically that if the price fell below $50 a barrel, there was no loan component. Seemingly knowing that as a fact. So are you or your party in possession of something else that shows something other than this?
Well, you said to me the opposition leader made that statement.
Right.
So
You can't
that
speak for
question
him.
would have
Should be
to be
directed
asked.
to him. But as far as you know, you don't know of anything that exists.
No, I don't know of anything that exists.
Okay. We're at the end of this other segment. When we come back, Dr. Lewis, I promise we'll talk about your vision, your hope for getting elected. Let's spend a little time talking about you when we come back from the break. This is Unrendered on IKTV. My guest is Dr. the Honorable Linton Lewis. When we come back, we'll be in our final segment.